recording. There we go. So today we're talking about the 3 constitutions that are foundational to constitutional iridology. My apologies to those of you who missed that first little bit. And we did a quick little disclaimer that we're just going to pop up on the screen really quick here one more time, so that you know that you are not ever going to use this to diagnose or prescribe, period. I don't care who you are, you're not going to do that. And welcome. So I want to just take a moment and introduce myself here. I know some of you have been with me before, and it's so good to see you. Some of you are brand new to me, and that is exciting too. I love having newbies. So I didn't mean that to sound insulting. I hope that didn't insult anyone. I love having new people in my group. My name is Judith Cobb. I'm a master herbalist, natural nutrition clinical practitioner, and a certified comprehensive iridology instructor. I have been working as a holistic health coach now for 40 years. I started out with Jensenian iridology, and about 30 years ago, with complete and total frustration with that, I was about ready to quit iridology altogether and just walk away from it, when I was truly blessed to be led to constitutional iridology. That was the smartest move I ever did, was to think that there could be a better way. There could be another way that would actually work. And so I jumped ship, and I've been a constitutional iridologist for nearly the past 30 years. And that is where I am so happy. And that is why I teach constitutional iridology. So again, I'd love it if you would just give me a comment in the chat box or in the comments or whichever platform you're on, just to let me know your name and just a little hello. Let me know where you're from. That's always fun to know. And we will work from there. All right, here we go. The very first of the types that we are going to look at, probably generally the easiest one to assess, is the lymphatic eye type. So we're going to pop this around. The lymphatic eye type, that's a beautiful lymphatic eye. And for those of you who are on Instagram, I apologize for all of the light reflections. I'm just going to turn some of the lights off here to reduce the amount of light reflection for our Instagram friends. There we go. Whoops. Hopefully that's a better image for you. All right. So as we look at this beautiful lymphatic eye, feel free to type questions into the comments or the chat box, whichever platform you're with me on. And I am doing my best to monitor all of them today. And I will try to answer them for you. What we know with lymphatic eyes, and again, this is super simple, is that they always have some blue, and there is always visible fiber. So when we look at this eye and we see all of these threads in here, these are what we call fibers. We have a more technical name for them, but we often just refer to them as fibers. And again, the lymphatic eye has some blue. It does not even need to be predominantly blue. It could have just a tiny bit of blue poking through. And that makes it a lymphatic eye. Now, there are a few more characteristics and traits that we ascribe to assessing an iris as being lymphatic, but for today's purposes, because we don't have an hour and a half or two to do the full 3 constitutions class right now, let's be happy with there's some visible blue, and there is some, and you can always see some fiber in the eye. Okay, so some visible blue and always some fiber. So these people have a characteristic set of inherent predispositions that help us to understand more about how this person is put together. And I'm just going to give you a quick little story. I had a client come in yesterday, and her mother was my client 35 years ago. And so this client is now in her mid-30s, and she was coming in with her children. So we're on the 3rd generation of this family. And I took eye photos of the 4-year-old and of the 2-year-old. And we were talking about their health differences. And the 4-year-old's eyes were fairly similar to this eye. They were very lymphatic, had the white hugging the collarette. And I asked the mom, I said, does this little girl have problems with mucus congestion? And she said, oh my goodness, does she ever? And then we looked at the 2-year-old sister, who has a biliary eye, and we'll look at an example of a biliary eye in a moment. I said, oh, this little girl doesn't have mucus congestion, does she? She said, absolutely not. And you can tell that from the eyes? And I said, yes, I can. Because when we are looking at a lymphatic iris, the lymphatic iris has common concerns that center around the mucous membranes, their pH levels in all of the different tissues of your body. And you know that different parts of the body have different pH levels. And the lymphatic system, just as the name suggests. So when we are working with someone who has a lymphatic iris, so some blue and fiber visible, we want to ask, is there a personal or family history? Now, why would we ask about family history? That would be because the eyes are an inherent blueprint of things, not just in this person's body, but things passed down over the last 3 to 4 generations. So the question is always, is there a personal or family history of asthma, allergies, arthritis, skin, or kidney issues? Now take a moment and think about all of that. When you think about all of those situations, asthma, allergies, arthritis, and skin problems, they all reflect back to the kidneys, and they all reflect back to the acid levels in the body. Just because a person has lymphatic eyes does not mean they will have those problems. It means that they have an inherent predisposition to those problems. Sometimes you will have a client come in who is doing so many things right. They've got the diet down pat, they've got the lifestyle down pat, they're doing the right kinds of supplements, so they don't actually have any of the symptoms of a lymphatic predisposition. But if your client isn't doing the right kinds of stuff, they are likely to have some or all of the symptoms of a lymphatic predisposition, especially based on age. Because what we see characteristically is that a child who has asthma will almost always have eczema and almost always have allergies. And if they start out with asthma, they may outgrow the asthma, but it becomes eczema. Or if they start with the eczema, they may outgrow the eczema and it becomes asthma, because those are just acid conditions of different tissues. And if they don't deal with that root cause of helping their body to balance its pH through proper foods and supplements and lifestyle, that acid imbalance will eventually become arthritis. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, give me a yes or a thumbs up, or let me know that that actually works for you, that it makes good sense. All right. And so as we think about our lymphatic person, we've got all of these things to keep in mind: asthma, allergies, arthritis, eczema, psoriasis, kidneys, so skin conditions and kidney issues. All right, let's look at another example of a lymphatic iris. Now, again, for those of you who are with me on Instagram, I know the images don't go through the phone camera quite as well as we would like them to. But this is still a blue iris. When we look at it, you go, that's not really blue. And guess what? In iridology, it is really blue. All right, we've got this steel blue-gray back in here. That counts as blue. A lymphatic iris can have other colors over it. We call these pigments. And these pigments teach us other things about this body and its inherent predispositions. So as we look at this, what we see is we've got the steel blue-gray fibers. We've got visible fibers. So that means this is a lymphatic eye. We need to also be aware with this lymphatic eye type that they can be a little bit prone to thyroid and parathyroid imbalances. Now, what do you know about thyroid and parathyroid? Because this is where it becomes so important for us as iridologists to not just understand markings, but to also understand anatomy and physiology, and to have a modality that we work with So for example, we need to have nutrition or herbology or homeopathy or something, aromatherapy, anything under our belt to help us work with this. So as we look at this iris, and we're wondering, do they have a thyroid or parathyroid imbalance? And I'm seeing some very minor suggestions that that might be a little bit of this person's issue, but they also have that inherent tendency because they are lymphatic. We know that thyroid and parathyroid together regulate the calcium levels in the body, the calcium levels in the blood and in the bones. And so we need to understand that. So when we are working with a lymphatic person, if we suspect that there may be a thyroid or parathyroid imbalance, and most people don't even know they've got parathyroids, just saying, we need to ask the question and probably start with thyroid. Is there a personal or family history of thyroid issues? And if they say yes, then we want to take that further. Maybe they know they've got parathyroids. Is there a personal or family history of parathyroid issues? Right? And so we want to ask that because we want to understand if this person might have some resulting bone or nerve issues because of calcium imbalance, because of the inherent predisposition that a lymphatic person, a lymphatic constitution person has, because of the predisposition toward thyroid, parathyroid imbalance. Does that all track for you? Does that all make sense? If it does, give me a thumbs up. Valerie's giving me a thumbs up. Yay! Thank you, Valerie. I appreciate that feedback. It is always good to know that I'm nailing it for you and that it is working for you. That is brilliant. So today I'm also going to begin laying the foundation for you. We've got 2 more constitutions to talk about, but to introduce how iridology can help you in your holistic health practice. Now and your wellness coaching, and I'm looking at the names of the people who I'm recognizing, and I recognize that many of you are holistic practitioners. This is the lovely Sharon Bimrose. She is a naturopath from Australia, and she said she'd already taken iridology as a part of her studies as a naturopath. So she came to me with some iridology background already. However, Judith's course, Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology, surpassed my previous training in structure, content, delivery, documentation, and support. Yes. Iridology has certainly reduced the time required for prioritizing a treatment plan. Iridology, without a doubt, has been a huge game changer to my practice. I love that because the purpose of iridology, using iridology in a practice, is not to give you one more thing to do. Because I know as holistic practitioners, we do a lot. And oftentimes we see the client for 1 hour, then we go off and we donate 3 or 4 hours of our own time to create a program for them, a nutrition program or a supplement program or whatever we do. And we want to stop doing that. Unless you're charging $500 for that first appointment, donating 3 or 4 more hours is not helping your income. It's not building your business. When you do iridology correctly, you can actually design your client programs right in your client session. You don't ever need to spend your own time designing a program ever again. All right, let's look at our next eye type. This is the hematogenic eye type. Does that make sense what I said about never creating another program on your own time and being able to get it done in your client session? Is that something that you would like? You know, I talk to so many holistic practitioners that spend anywhere, like I said, from 3 to 5 hours of their own time, unpaid, after hours, creating programs for their clients, and it just doesn't work that way. The hematogenic eye. So we're looking at, first off, both ends of the spectrum. The lymphatic eye is one end, the hematogenic eye is the other end. So when we look at these eyes, these are the true brown eyes. Now, these eyes may also have golden highlights in them, as this eye does. This eye has gold in it, and that's brilliant because it just gives us more information. With a hematogenic eye, there is such a dense layer of pigment in the top layer of the eye sitting on top of the fibers in the eye that we actually don't get to see the fibers. So as you look at this eye closely, can you see individual threads radiating outward? And the correct answer is no, just saying. And so with this, we're not going to see any blue in the iris itself because there is such a dense layer of pigment. And we won't see any green because green, again, would be a very light layer of yellow pigment. And the brown in a hematogenic eye would cover all of that. When we see this with the hematogenic eye type, we understand that the blood and the liver are the key areas to focus on as far as their inherent predispositions go. So we're going to ask them, is there a personal or family history of liver or blood issues? Now, if you've been in practice for more than about 10 minutes, you'll know that most of your clients don't have a clue about what their liver does, right? And I think people should have an owner's manual or have to take an anatomy physiology course. So, excuse me, so they understand what their organs are and what the organs do. Now, the liver does over 500 different things, so we wouldn't expect them to be able to list all of those. But we do want them to know some basic things that the liver does, right? When we look at liver, it stores iron. When we look at liver, it has a huge impact on how the immune system works. It has a huge impact in conjunction with the pancreas on processing carbohydrates. Of course, the liver makes cholesterol for us. The liver breaks down things that we don't need anymore in 2 phases of detoxification. The first phase makes the things that the liver's broken down water soluble, and the second phase breaks them down to where the kidneys can actually pull them out and get rid of them. So, we've got so many different things the liver does that sometimes we need to break it down for our clients. Most people know they've got a blood issue. But when we're talking about liver, we may need to say, how's your immune response? How's your energy through the day? Is it a roller coaster ride up and down? And do you crave sweets and carbs? So often we think about sweets and carbs as just being pancreas, but the liver and the pancreas work together, or at least they're supposed to help balance things out. So we always want to try to put the questions in the context that the client will understand, right? So important. Here is another great example of a hematogenic eye. Notice how different this one is. Where the previous one was really even and there was no extra fiber structure apparent, this one has all of this fiber structure that's really visible. And so again, we're still going to start with those main first questions. Is there a personal or family history of blood disorders or liver disorders? And then after that, we may want to branch down to some other things because hematogenic people tend to also have question marks about their spleens sometimes, about stomach and digestion, about circulation and the heart. Sometimes they'll be prone to varicose veins more so than other iris types. Their pH tends to be a little more alkaline. And that can be an issue because we need to be a little more acid to assimilate our minerals. Everyone out there is about talking about alkalis, alkalis, alkalis. Some people need to be focused on that because their bodies are very prone to being too over acid, but not everybody. Not everybody needs alkalizing. And with the hematogenic people, they often need a little acidifying to help them actually assimilate their minerals. That is especially true of calcium. If they are towards the too alkaline side, they won't assimilate their calcium. And then we end up with all of the nerve and bone questions and muscle and all that we have when we have calcium out of balance. So this mineral balance, again, when we've got all the minerals working right, it helps to balance the endocrine system. So the hematogenic person who tends to run a little too alkaline can have some significant issues with their endocrine system, so their hormones can be a little bit out of balance. Really important for us then to work with these people to make sure that they are at the right pH for all the different parts of their body, however you want to assess that. I usually do it using their symptoms and their digestion. How's their digestion working? That's a huge clue as to what is going to happen downstream and in the bloodstream. And we want to make sure they are optimal for their pH levels. Here is another lovely student of mine. I just want to show her beautiful picture. She's got such a lovely smile. This is Karen Choate. Karen Choate had never done iridology before. She got curious. She found me online. And after she had graduated, this is what she said. I just returned from a regenerative detoxification course where iridology is implemented. I spread the word about what a wonderful teacher you are. Oh, thanks, Karen. Most people I talked with did not have anywhere near the same experience with their iridology education. No support, they had unanswered questions, and a lot of confusion. Mostly they finished their classes not knowing how to implement what they had learned. I feel so absolutely blessed to have been taught by you. I feel totally supported, even still, as I've graduated almost 2 years ago now, and actually now it's nearly 3 years since she wrote this. I don't think there's anyone out there practicing, educating, and teaching iridology like you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I am eternally grateful for your never-ending patience and support. Iridology has totally changed the way Karen works in her business. She's finding that she's more accurate in her assessments with her clients. She is finding that she's able to create programs that her clients can stick with that are not so intricate and detailed that they get lost in them and can't follow them. She's just doing a beautiful job of implementing things. And, you know, one of the features of my program, Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology, and you can be a confident herbalist or confident homeopath too and still take the class, is that I offer support and mentoring long after the class is over, right? I've had people approach me who have said, I've certified with under another instructor, another certified iridology instructor, but I don't know how to use this. Will you mentor me? And my answer is no, I can't. You need to go back to your instructor and talk to them. And the answer I get back is I already did. And they said, figure it out for yourself. And that really disappoints me because I think that once you learn a skill and you, especially iridology, you understand what the markings mean, you understand what that means about the person's anatomy and physiology, you understand what questions to ask. I know darn well that down the road you're going to have more questions. And I know that because I still have questions. I still go back to my instructor who has since retired, but bless his heart, he answers my questions for me. And he answers them for me, and I offer the same support to my students. Long-term, long range, so important. All right, our next iris type, biliary. So we've done lymphatic, which is one side of the spectrum where for the true blue eye, there's no pigment that makes blue. We've talked about the hematogenic eye, where we have lots of pigment that makes it brown. Now we have the biliary eye, and the biliary eye kind of is like a brown eye in that there's often a lot of browns and golds in it, but it's like a lymphatic eye in that we can see visible fiber radiating outwards. So with a biliary eye, we will see absolutely no blue in the eye. There might be a little bit of green. There might be some gold. There will probably be some brown. There might even be some orange, but there will be no blue. There will be also no white fibers in the iris, but we will see green and gold. And the green will be an olive green, not a cat's eye green. We need to make sure we understand the difference there, because the cat's eye green can be more like a lymphatic eye, but the olive green is more the biliary eye. So old school iridologists, Jensenian iridologists would look at an eye like this and they would go, oh my goodness, you need to cleanse. You are so toxic. And we're just going to cleanse you till we turn those eyes blue. Oh my goodness. I'm going to tell you, that's a load of malarkey. A load of malarkey. I spent the first 10 years of my practice trying to take eyes like this and make them blue. Not doable, because the colors in the eye are inherent. The colors in the eye are not the result of something this person did. These are inherent, and bleaching the color out of this eye would say we had changed their genetic structure, right? So we are not going to do cleansing to try to turn this eye blue. The person may need cleansing because of other things that are going on, but it's not going to change the color of the iris of the eye. So the questions we need to ask this person focus on personal and family history of digestion, liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. Okay, and that has a lot to do with the different pigments we see in the iris. And so this is a tough eye to assess, though, because if you're not using some really good magnification, and if you're not using really good white light, it can mess up your perception of the colors, and you might actually think this was a hematogenic eye, because you need the magnification to actually see the fibers, right? So you just need to be aware that biliary can be a bit of a challenge to assess. Let's look at another one. Oh, there we go. I must have skipped this one. My apologies. There we go. So here is another great example of a biliary eye. We've got golds, we've got browns, we've got visible fiber. So this, again, is a great example of a biliary eye. And we are going to focus our questions, again, on things like digestion, liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. And it's going to be personal and family history of, right? Because this person, again, might be doing all things right. They might be young enough that they don't actually have the problems. So we want to make sure that we are looking where we need to assess issues. This is the lovely Michelle Davies. She came to me with iridology training. She had already had 3 certifications from David Pesic and 1 from Darko Purse. But this is what she said. This is the most amazing iridology course I've taken. Judith's course is top on my list. Judith's course is very complete, as it contains the most accurate iridology, including sclerology, and most importantly, how to put it all together and make a proper assessment. And I'm finding in talking to students as they enroll that it's the learning how to implement what they've learned that they're not getting in most classes. And I don't know if that was necessarily Michelle's issue, but I hear that a lot. I feel very confident in my nutrition practice now as she continues. And so, again, whether you are brand new to iridology or whether you've got some iridology under your belt, you just might be interested in joining us for Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology. This course, and I'm just going to spend a couple minutes here, this course is taught over 20 live webinar sessions, and it includes in the tuition a 200+ page textbook, a 45-page cheat sheets, and an iridology map, and those are all digital downloads for my students only. I've had other people ask, could they buy the textbook? No, absolutely not. It is for my students only. Now, here is what you need to know about this. We've got another go-around starting very soon, starting in April. Thursday, April 16th, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. And you can see the extra time zones there. Not such a great time zone for Australia. So I decided to run 2 cohorts of this. And the second one will be Friday, starting April 17th. And this one has a much better time for Australia because it shows up at their time at 8 a.m. Saturday morning. Robert Rodriguez, who is with us on the webinar, says, another great presentation. A quick question: is it possible to have a neurogenic subtype in hematogenic eyes? I ask because of not visible fibers. Roberto, that is a brilliant question. You, if they are a polyglandular type, you will see that, right? The ones that are hard to ascertain are neurogenic and connective tissue. And, but you know, if they're neurogenic, and if you're seeing nothing remarkable in the fiber structure, you can probably assume neurogenic, but you cannot ascertain it properly. You cannot absolutely firmly say, yes, this is neurogenic, because you cannot see the fibers. Exactly as you've said, you have to see the fibers to call it a true neurogenic. All right, so back to the course. Registration for this is going to be opening on, and hi Kate, it's good to see you, and Herba, it's good to see you too, and Ra, good to see you. Thanks for joining us on Instagram. If you want to be invited to the webinar that will be introducing all of the details of the course, that webinar is going to be on February 27th at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. To get onto that list, you need to go to iridology.education, which will be an Iridology website that will have a little pop-up box that will ask you if you want to opt in for the Iridology map download. Opt in, because that will put you on the list that will give you the notification of when and how to register to attend the webinar on Thursday, February 27th at 5 p.m. Now, for those of you on Instagram, it will not be done as an Instagram Live, because it takes a little more than an hour, and IG Live has a time limit of 1 hour. It will only be done as a webinar. So you need to get on the list. If you're receiving emails from me already, you are on the list. But if you're not receiving emails and you want to know all the details of this upcoming course, 40 hours of live webinar training with all of the content you need to prepare you to certify with the International Iridology Practitioners Association, and with all of the mentoring that you need to get you ready for that as well, then you want to be at this webinar on Thursday, the 27th. And so with that, I invite you to hop on over there and make sure you're registered, and that you're getting my emails. You would have gotten one, well, they send out 2 a week, sometimes 3, usually promoting these little free events. And so with that, I would love to see you there, and we'll answer all of the questions about the course in that live webinar. Thank you so much for being with me. I hope you have learned a little bit about the 3 basic constitutions of constitutional iridology today. There is certainly more to learn on the 3 constitutions, but I look forward to maybe having you in the class where you can learn all of the detail. I look forward to seeing you again on Tuesday at 11 a.m. Mountain Time for another live webinar introduction. And we'll see you then. Have a fabulous weekend. Bye for now.